Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, I was a little too crisp.
Okay.
I heard, like, my breathing and my mouth sounds. And
Mouth sounds.
you don't want the mouth sounds.
Probably
Well,
not.
some people do, but we don't want them in our audience.
That's for our
Pervert.
ASMR spin-off series.
Our fans only feed.
Yes.
That's
For
what
our
the Patreon.
our only fans, for the patrons. You can get the
Gross.
mouth sounds. Add a Patreon tier.
There you go.
We can definitely make that happen. Okay, let me do a countdown. We can get started.
Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up. Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And today, it is the Dia de los Muertos on this podcast. Just a few months early, because we are discussing Grim Fandango. And I am joined, as always, by Pete Busby.
Hey, everybody. Excited to talk about a very good game that I got to pick. Things are always better when I get to pick them. Just like this week's fun fact. So here's something to hopefully brighten up what is an grim and inexorable march towards madness this year. So, this is from an article from the University of Leiden, I think. And I'm just going to read the title because it says everything I need to say. Chimpanzees recognize one another from their rear ends. So in the same way that humans recognize each other's faces, chimps recognize each other's butts. Probably because they're looking at them so often.
Do they
Sure.
also recognize each other from faces?
Yes, it is
Only
not.
butts?
It is not exclusively butt recognition. It is in addition to.
Okay. Okay, that's better, because
That's a little bit better.
it'd be bad if you were like, is that my mom? Wait, turn around. It's my mom.
It's like, damn, she's stacked.
What a behind. Thank goodness.
I hate this.
And that other voice you hear, just so much disgust in it. That's M. Palladino. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here talking about Grim Fandango and not Monkey Butts.
I mean, we could have played Monkey Island.
We could.
It's true.
That was one of the ones on my list.
Super Monkey Ball. There are a lot of monkey-based games.
We've already played Ape Escape.
I didn't.
You didn't play Ape
You guys
Escape.
did.
We played Ape Escape 2. That game is a trip.
That's a classic.
Yeah, none of the apes escaped, thank goodness.
Good job.
So before we get into Grim Fandango, our normal housekeeping, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast at gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And you can also join us in... why do I never have it pulled up? Oh no, website under construction. The Trans Women of Color Collective's website is... Okay, the donate button's still there. Cool. You can join us in supporting the Trans Women of Color Collective at twocc.us/donate. And so, we have no emails, but we do have a little bit of feedback about a comment that we read last time about from ZP telling Billy about a game that we've played in the past, saying that the developers just did not agree with Billy's interpretation of the game, and Billy has responded to say that even though the developers have said that his reading was wrong, he still has his reading and will not be swayed. So he still believes the Talos Principle does not actually it's not a game about religion.
I mean, in a way, I admire his consistency. I mean, he's wrong, but, he's consistently wrong.
He did say that he does not want me to strawman his stance on the Talos Principle, and so he said we should revisit it at some point and have another pod to see if it holds up. And so I thought I'd say that into a microphone to see how you feel about it.
I mean, if we want to, we can revisit it. I mean, I don't feel like I'm going to change my answer.
I'm not going to change mine either, but we can find something. How's about this? Billy revisits it,
Sure.
and then we have him call in.
We'll read a prepared statement on the air.
Sure. All right. Em, do we have anything else from the Discord?
Nothing major. The usual ZP was acting out in the food channel, and I had to ban him again. I forget what his offense was this time, but it was atrocious.
I think it was ketchup pasta.
No, it was.
He's already done ketchup pasta, hasn't he?
Yeah,
He does the oldies and the goodies.
Yes, it was a lot of dialogue about what consists of a salad, and I was too tired to actually have any rebuttals for what he was saying. He said that caprese salad is not actually a salad because it doesn't have any leafy greens or dressing.
I mean, it has basil in it.
Yeah, which is what we said, and he was like, that doesn't count. Then this...
And it has olive oil on it.
It's more of a salad than like chicken salad is.
Oh, yeah.
He was saying that antipasto was a salad by that justification because there's cheese and olives and I guess...
But antipasto, that's just a course. That's the name of a course. It's like saying appetizers are salad. That's not...
He said caprese salad is not a salad because there is not greens. He says basil does not equal lettuce. And I said lettuce is not required for a salad. He said he did not like it. I said it's okay not to like things. And then
it kept going.
To silence him.
Yes.
What a hot take. Basil's not required for a salad.
Lettuce is not required. Basil is not a leafy green, and lettuce is not required for a salad. These are the stances that were in conflict with one another.
And then he said, by definition, a bowl of meat could be a salad. He had a pasta salad, which was macaroni and cheese inside of pasta shells. So
yeah, he wasn't allowed to post for a while.
For a little while. Other than that, you guys are still working on your Chrono Cross.
Yep.
How's that going?
That podcast, the next Chrono Cross podcast will be coming soon, and let me tell you, Chrono Cross is a doozy of a game.
Yeah?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that happens in that. Very little of it intelligible. They took a hard turn after Chrono Trigger. Have either of you played Chrono Cross?
Nope, just Trigger.
I edited the podcast and it sounded like a trip.
Yeah, we didn't even get to the weird part yet.
That's not the weird part?
No, we're not even... I mean, the next podcast we're going to start with the weird part, but we're not even up to the weird parts yet.
From what I've gathered, it's not a terribly long game.
No, it's just very obtuse.
Gotcha.
In spots. And you need a flow chart to know what's going on in the story at times, but yeah, not particularly long. So
that's how I want my games, with supplemental documentation.
Oh yeah. You want to be able, as we said on the Chrono Cross podcast, if you really want to understand what's going on in Chrono Cross, you actually need to play Radical Dreamers, a game that was released for a very specific add-on to the NES where you could download games from the internet. And you could only like a few thousand people ever downloaded Radical Dreamers. So it is the sequel to a Chrono Trigger sequel that was released on a incredibly obscure attachment to a like primitive online console.
Cool.
Yeah.
I want one of those.
It's a very weird game. So yeah. We're doing that, and we also have some folks getting into the FFTCG. Hell yeah. We did it.
Good game.
Very good game.
You should all play it.
You should. It's very good.
We've also gotten a suggestion for an end-of-the-year award to give out, which I will pose to the group. ZP would like a worst picker at the Game of the Year award this year. he titles it Whopper of the Year Worst Individual Picker. So this is for the person who picked the worst stuff overall.
All right.
What do you think?
I mean, sometimes I deliberately pick bad games, though.
That's true.
I know. There are definitely times when I deliberately pick bad games. And there's sometimes where you pick a game and it turns out bad, but it was not like, I'm doing this to you. Take that.
I'm willing to do it with no associated shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as there's no shaming.
All right.
No, of course. This is
Look,
a professional, game review podcast. We would never shame anyone for picking bad games.
No.
Yes. We will
Except
shame
for
people.
Jeff, who picked Final Fantasy XI. That will never be forgiven.
We could have played 14. We'll get to
We're
14
going
at some
to.
point. After I finish 13-2.
Which reminds me, Final Fantasy XIV, free up to level 60. The first 2 expansions are free, so play it now. Hell
Eventually.
yeah.
All right, so I guess it's time now for my obsession. And my obsession this week is with bicycles.
Oh,
I got a
Okay.
bicycle.
Nice.
going analog this time.
Yeah.
I like it.
I got a bicycle because I figured, hey, I walk places and run places, and bikes are better for your knees than running.
True. Low impact.
Low impact, good exercise, and now I'm biking regularly, and it's very nice. I've seen some very cool animals and things on bike rides. I saw a great horned owl recently.
It's a good bird. Strong bird.
Strong bird in the daytime. I was like, what are you doing out here, bud? But yeah, it was just hanging out. I thought for a second it might be like a bobcat or something, but then its head just kept turning, and I was like, oh, that's an owl.
What is wrong with that bobcat?
Why does it fly?
Yeah, so bikes, I would say if you can get a fairly nice bike. I was used to just having like community shared bikes from like college and like the rent-a-bike systems and like New York City and stuff like that. So and my childhood bike. I had never had a nice bike before, and it turns out they're way better.
Gino, I don't know if you need this advice, having lived in New York, but I learned at Penn State you got to be very careful about salt in
Yes.
the winter.
This is
It
true.
will melt your bike.
It'll tear your bike apart. It'll also mess up your tires.
Yep.
It's a bad time. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be riding my bike very much when there's snow on the ground, but
Smart.
during the summertime, when there's not snow on the ground, it's a great way to get around. You can clear a bunch of miles real fast, and it's you get the wind in your hair. It's a whole thing. So yeah, bicycles. Check them out. They're good. Don't settle for skateboards and scooters. Get a bike. All right, with that out of the way, now it's time to talk about Grim Fandango. And Pete, since you picked
Yes.
Grim Fandango, why don't you tell me a little bit about Grim Fandango?
Sure. So Grim Fandango is a late 90s adventure game. Some people sort of point to it as the last adventure game. Not factually accurate, but perhaps spiritually so. So you play as basically a Grim Reaper. You're not the Grim Reaper. There are a few of them. And souls come down to purgatory, and you have to sell them a travel package to get to, they don't call it heaven, but we'll just shorthand it as heaven. But early on, you uncover what seems to be a sinister conspiracy, such that your love interest is, I don't know, basically exiled. You have to sort of track her down and unravel this conspiracy at the same time, using late 90s adventure game logic.
Yes. So you play as Manny Calavera, which is such a good name.
It
And
is.
you are trying to help rescue Meche Colomar as you go through this Dia de los Muertos themed game that is also kind of a noir mystery. Kind of a little bit of Casablanca, a little bit of wouldn't be Humphrey Bogart, would it? Like those detective
Sure.
stories.
Yeah, you can go Maltese Falcon with it.
Yeah. And It's a Double Fine game. Well, actually, it's a LucasArts game, but it was developed by Tim Schafer. So it is now. I played Grim Fandango Remastered. Did everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it produced by Double Fine, and it kind of falls in line with the legacy that we've seen with Day of the Tentacle, which we played earlier this year. It's definitely a companion piece, though definitely further developed than that game. So what was your first impression of Grim Fandango?
Kick-ass soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, best sounding games. They actually, for the remastered version, I think it was the Sydney Orchestra they used to re-record the songs. So, tells you all you need to know.
Yeah. Now that's a city, Sydney.
Yeah, right? That's an orchestra and a half.
Yep. Yeah, the sound when you go to this first, the street carnival right outside of Manny's office, I love that woodwind and kind of that South American feel. What did you think of the initial, the graphical layout, the look of the characters, the look of the world?
They did a lot with very simple character models. Manny is basically a cylinder for a head, and then the body. And so to have this skeleton man be so expressive, they did a lot of good stuff with graphically. Everyone felt like they had a very unique silhouette. And the remastered version, there's nothing bad about the updates they've done. Yeah.
I found myself captivated by two things specifically in the character models. One was the hair.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all skeletons. So basically all the characters have either facial or head hair Sharpied on for the most part. I don't know if they're necessarily Sharpies, obviously, but they seem drawn on. And then also the characters are all different weights, different body silhouettes, but they're skeletons. So are they stuffing their clothes? Are they just sort of billowed out? What do they have underneath there?
Big boned.
Some people, I guess, they just got big rib cages, and so they get bigger clothes.
They just puff out, I guess.
Yeah, we do get to see where they come from, and it's horrifying.
Oh yeah, when they go to
the real world,
the human world.
Yeah, we'll
that's
get to
scary.
that.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
So this game, would you say that this is a bit of a companion piece with kind of the Beetlejuice interpretation of the afterlife? Kind of afterlife as banal bureaucracy?
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's definitely Beetlejuice adjacent. I honestly think this is a little bit more sinister. Insofar as you basically have to pay your way into the afterlife.
Yeah, so the setup that we get, Manny is a Grim Reaper, but he's also kind of a travel agent, and he is working.
It's a late 90s game, so still a thing.
Yeah, back when you could do that as a profession. So he's collecting souls from the world of the living, bringing them to the afterlife, and then trying to upsell them on packages to get from the 8th circle of the underworld to the 9th circle, which is kind of heaven. And so depending on how you lived in the real world, or in the world of the living, it qualifies you for certain packages in the afterlife to make your trip easier. So, if you were a complete dirtbag, you get no help. You have to walk from the entrance to the 9th circle. If you maybe were a little bit less of a dirtbag, maybe you get a walking stick. If you're better than that, maybe you get a car. All the way up and up and up until you get the number 9 train, which is a train that goes straight from the entrance of the underworld to the 9th circle in 4 minutes. So the normal walk from the entrance to the 9th circle is 4 years, and the train will take you there safely in 4 minutes. And the journey on foot is dangerous. Souls can be trapped in the 8th circle permanently, even though they're skeletons and they're already dead. There are circumstances that can be, if not necessarily killing you again, just completely immobilizing you so that you're stuck in the afterlife. And so Manny is kind of serving this dual function, right? He's got this scythe, he's got his robes, but then as soon as he gets people into the office, he's pulling up their file on a computer, and his hands are tied, right? He can only sell people what they've earned in the world of the living. And he gets commissions. He's on a commission basis to work off his debts, which we don't really know where his debts came from, right?
No, there's no indication of like what he spent his money on.
Or how do you incur debt in the afterlife, assuming that it didn't just follow him from the world of the living, which would be really sinister.
Yeah, that's dark.
But it's like, so there's at least the currency's good deeds, which is nice, but also by the time you get to afterlife, you can once again earn money. So there are certain people in the society that just stay in 8th afterlife because they're rich and things are pretty good, as opposed to trying to go to 9th afterlife. So even in the afterlife, things are better for rich people. Yeah,
and that's kind of an interesting point that comes up early on in the game, that some people who lived bad lives, the game kind of says, like, some people didn't live great lives, and they think it's better to try and make the 8th afterlife as manageable as possible instead of moving on to the 9th and seeing if there will be some sort of comeuppance for what they've done and how they've lived. So they've recreated capitalism in the afterlife.
Basically.
Heaven's own economic system.
Yeah, it's the choice of the afterlife, so how can we really critique it? But people who are living in the 8th circle, there is currency, and that currency can get you access to ships. It can get you access to ways of moving around. And so they've kind of set up this entire system where people can get on top and then exploit the labors of those beneath them.
I'd like to throw out a thesis as well.
Go for it.
I think the only reason there can be capitalism in the afterlife is because there are also guns in the afterlife. So you can shoot and kill somebody. So presumably they have the force to maintain these unbalanced capitalistic relations.
Yes, technically you are sprouted. You don't die. Like, a plant comes out of you and I don't know if it kills you or if it just roots you to the ground so you can't move.
You're ineffective for one reason or another.
Did we know, like, is there a lore reason why it's plants? Is it ever addressed? Like,
I did not hear. So I was actually listening to the developer commentary while I was playing this game, and I did not notice the commentary there. I might have just missed it. But
just curious.
I think that it's a good thematic way. Like, they're a skeleton, and now there's this plant it seeds in them, and then it separates their bones so they can't move, and it locks them in place. Like, if they can't die, being immobilized is functional. It's worse than death because then you are trapped there for eternity. But yeah, this game, they came up with death so that the bad guys can enforce their will. So early on, we start out just like Manny in the travel agency, but he realizes he never gets any commissions. He never gets anyone who he can sell anything good to. So he's basically stuck in a treadmill selling garbage to bad people, with no way. And because it's commission based, if he never gets a client who is capable of getting something good, he can never earn a commission that's worth his freedom. And he notices that Domino Hurley, his rival Grim Reaper, is always given the good commissions. And we get early on a chance for Manny to potentially poach someone good by going to a mass poisoning. And apparently at a mass poisoning, it's first come, first serve. If you find someone.
Because there's so many people who have died, they can't assign everybody. Just go and grab somebody.
Yep. And that takes us to the world of... Well, first we meet Glottis, who becomes your temporary driver, who is a spirit of the 8th underworld itself. Yeah. An elemental spirit assigned one goal.
Yes, to drive / be a mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It says, I'm looking at the manual, the Grim manual PDF. It says, Claudus is an elemental spirit of the land of the dead, summoned from the soil and given one purpose, to drive, or to change oil and adjust timing belts if no driving jobs are open.
yes. I love that all of the elemental spirits have a primary purpose, but even then they are shunted onto purposes that are secondary. Like, there's an elemental spirit who also works in Manny's office, whose one sole purpose was to work on elevators, but the elevator maintenance was done, and so that purpose being fulfilled, this demon or elemental spirit was shunted off to, like, maintaining the mail room.
Which operates on a system of pneumatic tubes, which all the best mail systems do.
And
Yeah,
of course,
there is actually
you're gonna
developer.
fuck it all up.
There's developer commentary on the pneumatic tubes.
What do they say?
They say that the pneumatic tube inspiration was originally from old New York buildings, where apparently they would have pneumatic tubes running from building to building, and now some buildings are still connected via the tubes, but no one uses them anymore.
I think we should bring those back.
Yes, of course. More tubes. If it was good enough for the Jetsons, it's good enough for you. So yeah, it's great that even the elemental spirits are frustrated. Like, they were created for one purpose, and none of them get to do their purpose, for the most part. So we find out about Domino. He's getting all the good assignments, and after the poisoning, you go find you go to the land of the living. What did you think of the interpretation of the land of the living?
Horrifying. The scariest part of a game about death.
The living people are basically like photo collages. It's weird. Very unsettling. You just gotta see it. We can't explain it.
I love the idea that to the dead, the living look wild.
They're like, oh my god, they're covered with all this like weird squishy stuff. I don't really get it.
And I love that, like, for the purposes of this game, I know as a developer, thinking about how you would handle humans, right, in this game that's largely based around skeletons and low-res, low-poly models, you can't do the level of fidelity that you would want for human beings. What makes the skeletons look okay is because you have very striking profiles. You're able to do a lot with just the textures because it's basically white and black and that's it. And then, their outfits. But it being a little boxy and cartoony actually is exactly what you want for that look. But for the humans, if you had to come up with a look for them, it wouldn't necessarily look as good rendered in the same engine with the same processing power. So making them a weird collage where they're photorealistic but unsettling, I think works way better than trying to make models that look good in the same engine.
It is too, like, it's the only time we see them. So, like, it'd be a weird allocation of resource space to spend a whole bunch of time with it, too.
Yeah, and it's way better. Like, did you scare each of the humans?
Oh, yeah.
I hate how they look when you scare them. I hate it. Hate all of it. You find a person, he's terrible, you go back, and this is where we realize that there's some sort of conspiracy going on. We meet... Well, first we have to blow up the mailroom. And did anyone get stuck on that puzzle? That was the first puzzle I got stuck on.
It was like weirdly balloon-centric.
Yeah.
Eating two balloons is a jerk move.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was using a guide for most of it because it's just the easiest way to get through things. So I would not have put that together if I was playing regularly, especially because the room where you need to fill up the balloons with this foam solution, you only go in there in a cutscene. This is a lot of the same problems I have with stuff like Final Fantasy VII, where sometimes there's just paths and you can't see them because it's go in this little corner of the room, and then it will continue on into a hallway. But you have no way of knowing that because it's like there's a door behind you, basically. And so a lot of the times, the parts I would get stuck on, it would be like, now go past where there's people talking. Like there's a part in the second area where there's like a bunch of bees hanging out. And then you have to like keep walking past them, and then there's a lighthouse. But there's no indication that there's a path there. You just gotta like know. Yeah, like I don't have the I guess the brain function for I haven't been primed, you know?
Yeah, you didn't grow up in the heyday of adventure games, so like
Exactly, yeah.
it's not immediately what occurs to you.
Mm-hmm. So that sort of thing threw me. And I would have never found that room if the guide wasn't like, it's over here.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments like that, and there's true adventure game logic of collect every single item you see, anything that you can take it. If you can get a balloon shaped like Robert Frost's head, you do that. It might not be important now, but one day this will be important.
Shout out to, as far as I'm concerned, the balloon skeleton is the second funniest character in the whole game.
Yeah.
Behind only the stock demon, I guess I should say, who restocks the wine in the casino. I don't know how much time you spend talking to that demon, but this is this line where you ask him if he's going down, and he says, probably later tonight, buddy. Like, yeah. Like, that's a good line.
There's so much good writing in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is definitely further along in Tim Schafer's development as a writer. You still get some of the puns and some of the referential humor, but not as much as in Maniac Mansion. And at this point, a lot of the jokes are really contextual and lend some weight to the narrative instead of just being non sequiturs, which I appreciate. Like, I love this clown that's put upon and just, well, fuck, I'm in the afterlife and I'm a clown making fucking balloon animals. And this asshole is coming up to me, making jokes. Could you imagine, like, dying, then going to clown college or something, and now some asshole's coming and making fun of you? And,
yeah, like
then he does his job.
If he wasn't even a clown in like the real world too,
Yeah.
Like he did something completely different and had to become a clown now.
Yeah,
It's
terrible.
There's like an immigration sort of narrative to all this too. Like I think Manny describes it as like immigration as part of his job. So it's kind of like in the old country I was a doctor and now I have come here and I am a clown.
And anything you ask him to make, though, he will do it.
Yep.
If you
He's
want
a
Robert
champ.
Frost, if you want a dingo, if you want a cat,
Dead
he'll give
worm.
you as many dead worms as you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, we find out that Manny gets a hold of Meche's file and realizes that he can't actually sell her a ticket on the number 9, despite the fact that she clearly has earned it. And did you interrogate her very much?
Yeah, I think I went through most of her conversation tree. Apparently she hasn't killed many people.
I love that. Have you killed anyone? No. Even a little bit? No. Not even one person? No, not even one person.
Or when you ask her if she shoplifted, and she's like, yeah, but it wasn't really my fault. The puppy followed me out of the store.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of great lines back and forth. And they have chemistry immediately. And that's actually something, the developer commentary throughout is really good. But the commentary talking about the person who voices Meche and the person who voices Manny, apparently those two actors had worked together previously in other work. So they both had chemistry already from having done scenes together. So they found it really easy.
It's also very resonant with the whole like sort of noir detective tradition You know, like the dame walks into your office and there's this like sort of pitter patter back and forth of like a, 40s detective movie.
Yeah, and that's definitely what this game is going for. So we learn that there's some conspiracy. People are not being given their just rewards. Someone's taking the tickets for the number 9 and using them to fund basically criminal empires in the afterlife. They're trying to make staying in the afterlife as bearable as possible. And Manny joins the Soul Liberation Front, I believe is the name.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like a resistance group, really.
Yes.
The Lost Souls Alliance.
Yes, the Lost Souls Alliance. And you become an agent to try and overthrow this corrupt system.
Because they need your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
They do need your teeth. Did you figure out the teeth puzzle? Or guides? Everyone's using guides, so I
Yeah.
shouldn't ask.
I can't
Never in a million fucking years would I have figured that out.
You
Yeah,
steal. You have to steal your rival's mouth guard, which is gross.
Mhm.
And you have to do it by punching a punching bag, but 3 times.
You punch the punching bag, and then you have to go into the Gladys's room, and there's what looks like a coffee machine, and except the thing is dripping like motor oil or something, and that's what you use to make a mold of your teeth. Why you would think to put that into your mouth guard, I have no idea. It makes no sense.
But
Nope.
that's what you gotta do.
Yep.
So yeah, you join the Lost Souls Alliance. You're able to leave, and then from there you're kind of walking throughout the land of the dead, searching for Meche, trying to figure out exactly what happened. Were there any locations that really jumped out to you, or moments in this game?
I mean, my favorite chapter was I guess it's year 2, where he's a nightclub owner, and they're in their white dinner jackets, him and Gladys, and it's very Casablanca-esque. Like, it's this club that's sort of on the edge of the world, and everybody's trying to get out and get somewhere else, and he sort of has this woman from his past on the mind. I mean, just based on the white dinner jackets alone, I have to think it's an homage.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that when Manny gets to what is the name of the place that he eventually turns? Is it Rubacava?
The town?
Yeah, it's Rubacava.
Yes.
He gets there, and it's originally just like this waiting port where you're waiting for a ship to come. And I guess, there's only so many ships in the land of the dead, so if you're waiting, you're going to wait a while. And he turns this place that's originally almost like a diner into a nightclub.
It's an automat, which is it's basically like an automatic food service place. There are all these little doors, and you open up and take your food out. They used to be very popular.
Yeah, and he turns it into Vegas, and the whole town kind of flips from this empty, abandoned automat into a place. And I thought that it was kind of an interesting way that the game, like, when you originally arrive in the land of the dead, it's sold to you as this interstitial space where you're trying to go from the world of the living to the ninth circle. It's a space that's meant to be moved through and left behind. But the game shows us in a lot of ways how basically bad actors turn this space into a means or an end unto itself. And I think Manny's Casino is kind of evidence of that. It goes from an automat, which is meant to literally be someplace you come in, grab your food, and go. It's almost like a gas station rest stop. And he turns it into a casino, a place that is meant to get you to come in, stay there permanently. Like, casinos are designed to essentially entrap people.
Yeah, remove senses of time. I mean, no windows, no clocks.
Exactly. And all of these games, like you see, betting on the horses, or if Are they horses?
Cats.
Yeah, betting on cats. All of the games that you see. They basically put you into debt. They strip you of your sense of time, and they make this world that was supposed to be cast off into the only place you'll ever know. And it's interesting to see how the corruption of this world is represented. Like, they show the corruption in a similar way that, like, 1920s, 30s movies might do, but it's extra impactful when it's the land of the dead, right? It can literally be eternity. There is a meaning that is supposed to be contained in these spaces and in where you're trying to go. And the trappings of the world of the living that keep overlapping on top of it start stripping that inherent meaning away and kind of debasing the whole space.
Yeah, because there's an alternative story that could have been told here, right? Where there's like sort of a long history of people who are on the fringes of society sort of colonizing outside spaces. So like the people who are basically shunted into this years-long journey would then colonize those interstitial spaces to create a space for themselves. You know what I mean? But like you said, Gina, that's not what we're getting here. It's not an act of resistance. It's an act of co-optation.
Yes. And kind of along the same lines, we see a similar progression from the Liberation Front, the Souls Alliance. When you first meet them, they're in a sewer, like outside of what is essentially a travel agency. It's made up of two people, and they basically have they're stealing internet from the building above them, and they've got a projector, and all they want in the world is pigeon eggs. Because they want to build carrier pigeons for when they eventually have more agents than just the two of them. And from the first year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to year 4, they just grow and grow and grow in power. And as the conspiracy that they are fighting against becomes more and more real, they become empowered as well. And so this game actually manages to let a sense of time just progress the entire way. It's not just using these year jumps as a narrative tool. It's also demonstrating that movement of time through the changes of the landscapes by revisiting locations, and also by having this group of characters just ascend in power or descend in power.
Well, things do tend to work out pretty well for our hero. I mean, he goes from working with a mop in the automat to being a successful nightclub owner. He starts off as a ship hand and eventually becomes captain somehow. Things generally trend up for him.
Yeah, and Manny, I mean, just getting out of the crappy job he was in is a pretty big step up. Getting any sort of forward progress in his life is definitely a big improvement over selling canes to assholes. So were there any other moments that really jumped out at you? Any characters?
So I have to give a shout out for my Marxist organizing bees, my literal worker bees. It is, I'm a little upset it is played for laughs, at least initially, but they do subsequently organize in a way I appreciate.
They do. I do like that you have to do that. This game and Pajama Sam both have Marxist organizing as a major theme. Weirdly enough.
They did too. They had the obligatory sort of Marxist intellectuals sitting in their, coffee shop listening to poetry and just sort of like vibing on the whole theory of the thing. That was a nice touch as well.
Yeah, they had the beatniks. Doesn't the receptionist from the very first level, I mean, she joins the Lost Souls Alliance, and then doesn't she end up there as well in the cafe, kind of vibing? I think it's her. It might be another character.
I think that's someone else.
Yeah.
But she does join the Lost Souls Alliance as well. She's like, oh, I can finally get to do the thing that I've wanted to do this whole time. Olivia?
Right.
Yeah. The mechanics you meet in the last part are kind of like worshipping Glottis as some sort of god because he's so huge. That was the other one I wanted to talk about because those guys were funny. Glottis needs to go fast. They're like, no, it's not fast enough to go on the gondola. He needs a rocket. So you have to create this rocket train car to get you back.
Yeah. So what was, overall, like, what was your impression of Grim Fandango? Like, do you think the game held up to the lofty praise?
I think it most definitely holds up. Like, I think adventure games, there's a reason adventure games died out for the most part. You know, like, I think we're sort of past that as a game genre. But I don't think I've played a game in a long time that sounds this good and has such sort of like an interesting, compelling story to it, even if I don't really give a shit about the gameplay.
I mean, given that critique, does this game fall under the age-old, it would be better as a movie critique of some gameplay light games? I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either, but I will say I would watch the shit out of a Grim Fandango movie.
Yeah, me too. Like, turn it into a Netflix miniseries? Hell yeah.
I think that the timing and the ability to go through the joke trees as far as you want and poking around with things is still compelling enough, even if you want your forward progress to come to you smoothly via a guide.
I do think too, like, the like walking is weirdly important in this game. Like, just like the act of walking between spaces, I found very compelling for whatever reason. Because you walk a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's in many ways it's a game about walking.
Which is a very classic adventure game. Like, you have to bring the fucking wrench from this part of the map all the way to the other side.
It is very 90s in its way.
Mm-hmm. I wish you defaulted to not walking, like you could run. I spend most of my time trying to run places just because I wanted to get there fast, but should have probably slowed down and smelled the roses growing out of the skeleton.
Yeah, I definitely had a little bit of annoyance on times when I would try to run to an object. If you interacted with an object, you would walk up to use whatever you were trying to use, but you could like run right up to it and then click on it, and it would be much faster than if you clicked on the object directly.
There was too, so like one of the things that did really annoy me about this game is that there are certain actions you have to perform like with your back to certain people, or you have to turn around so people don't see you do things, which is a very, very annoying way to structure things. Where like you think it's wrong, but no, you're just facing the wrong direction.
Yeah. And did you find any way to access things in the inventory without going through every frickin' item?
Nope.
No, you always have to open your jacket, it seems like.
Yeah, that is another, like, just bit of annoying UI design that you always need to go through every item.
I will say, as far as, like, inventory design for this time, innovative to have it be, like, not a menu that you go through, but rather like a kind of diegetic. You're actually shuffling through stuff in your coat. I really liked that, actually. I didn't mind doing it.
A very suave gesture, too.
Yeah.
To just sort of like reach into an inside suit pocket. Like, it made me wish I had a cigarette case. I've never smoked in my life, but it would be so cool to just take my cigarette case out of my suit jacket.
Yeah, it's a very cool look. I just wish it was less tedious when your inventory got very big.
True.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I wish I could do it if I chose to, and if I didn't. I mean, I know that I never would if I could choose to just go to a menu, but it just got really annoying when I was full on inventory. Like when I had 15 things in my pocket, I didn't want to go through all 15 to get to the last one. So, are there any other takes on Grim Fandango? Like, did you find the conclusion satisfying?
One last question, too, just while it's on my mind. I don't know if you noticed. Does anybody know what this is rated? Did they have game ratings back then?
I would guess T for teen, but let me see.
At this point, they definitely had ESRB ratings.
Yeah, it was a PC game, so...
It's not on the cover, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up is because this is like when you see kids' movies
Mm-hmm.
where like all the best jokes go over the kids' heads.
Yeah.
I feel like Grim Fandango has that same sort of vibe. Like, this is a game that's like specifically built for adult grown sensibilities.
Yeah. One of the points that I was actually going to bring up was, as I was looking through the manual, the first page, there's a little asterisk, and then at the bottom it says, for those who are disturbed by the amount of smoking in Grim Fandango, we offer 2 reasons. 1, you want it to be true to the film noir atmosphere, and 2, everybody in the game who smokes is dead. Think about it. And so clearly they had some knowledge, like, hey, kids are probably going to be playing this game. We should at least mention it in passing. I don't know if they put that in there because parents were like, oh no, there's smoking in it. But it was neat to see them, like, do that little, we know.
Mm-hmm.
But Gino, you were asking about the conclusion. I guess it would have been a little bit too on the nose if they did the Casablanca ending, you know, where, not to spoil a 80-year-old movie, but where like he gives her the ticket so she can leave, but he's forced to stay then as a result. I mean, it's fine. It's a happy ending, you know. I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
I think with the structure the way it is, that was the only way it could have ended. Like, when you're in the land of the dead, you kind of want the conclusion to be you pass on to whatever is next, because it's like this transitory state.
Right.
So,
yeah. Purgatory is
into
by
it.
definition a temporary thing.
Yeah.
It's a good point, Em.
Agreed. I think this game holds up very well. Like, I love how they reuse El Morro and Nuevo Morro. I love how they change Rubacava. It's a game that has maybe 3 or 4 locations, but those same locations get revamped over time. And because of it, it allows this game, despite being limited in scope in some ways, to feel much more expansive. It feels like the world is adapting and changing.
One thing I was disappointed in is that we never actually got to see a cat race.
Yeah.
I was really curious. I mean, they're like giant, like tiger, multi-striped purple things. I wanted to see them race.
They have a cat statue in like one of the lobby areas of the cat race stadium, but we do not ever see a cat racing. It seems like something they probably, my game designer brain is saying, we really wanted to put it in as a mechanic, but it was too hard. And so it had to be cut.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I would guess it's either too hard, it wouldn't have looked great, or it was not a great use of effort.
Like, if you see those cats, that cat statue does not look like an actual cat. So maybe they were like, I don't know. Maybe the technology wasn't there at the time.
Speaking of the technology, one of the lines of commentary that came up was in the garage section at the very beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that had directional sound, or it had reverb?
Really?
Yeah. So, like, because you're moving around in this space and there's supposed to be an echo, they built dynamic reverb into that garage. And it's one of the only places in the game that has it. And at first, they were like, what if we just, put reverb onto the sound effect and it's just a static sound effect? It doesn't care. The game doesn't care where you are in relation to the walls or anything like that. But one of the people in the dev team said, no, you should give me 5% of the CPU and we're going to come up with real reverb. Dynamic reverb.
Impressive attention to detail.
Yeah, it's wild.
I would have picked cat races over that, but I mean, I appreciate the effort it took.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, we had to cut the cat races because we wanted the reverb in this one scene.
Well, look, hard choices need to be made sometimes.
That's true.
True.
But yeah, I really recommend, if you're going to play this game second time, definitely go through with the commentary, because some of the things that they mention just really stand out. Like, they talk about where the inspiration for some of these art pieces came from, how the mechanics actually work underneath the hood. They talked about how certain animations were really tough to do because characters needed to be near other objects and then the object had to animate dynamically. But then also there are pre-rendered backgrounds, so the characters, like the object they needed to interact with, needed to be positioned in this space so that it looked right when it was on the rendered background.
Mm-hmm.
They get some people in like the QA team who talk about QAing this thing when there was only 2D black and white sketches were all the backgrounds instead of the rendered backgrounds.
It is a shame. I mean, I don't really see, maybe I'm just missing it, like commentary on many games. And I really think it would be super interesting to find out how some of this stuff gets done.
I really liked that when we were playing Day of the Tentacle. Like, I played it the first time around with the dev commentary on. I don't know why I decided to do that, but it was actually really interesting to hear their, like, commentary throughout. Is it the same, like, does it press a button and then they do their commentary, or does it just start playing?
It's press a button. So
Okay.
in each scene, depending on where you're standing, it'll just give you a little dev commentary icon on the top of the screen. And once you've heard it, it will go from like orange to dull orange to let you know that you've listened to it already.
That's
but
also
it's positional.
Yeah.
So like in certain scenes, there will be multiple pieces of commentary because, you know, maybe you're facing an elevator or maybe you're facing the door and there'll be different commentary for each. The only thing that I wish was a little bit smoother would be if the commentary followed you from screen to screen, but the commentary is kind of locked to the screen you're in. So if you're trying to solve a puzzle and the commentary's long, you're just going to have to stand still in the screen until the commentary's done, which makes the commentary playthrough a little bit longer than it would be if you just play through the game normally. But I think it's worth it. Like, the context that they give you. This is a really interesting time as well for game making. Like, PCs were starting to get more powerful. You could do a lot more, but you were still pretty hard capped in terms of what you could do, like the amount of memory you had, the amount of graphical fidelity you could get in, the amount of sound effects you could have. So this is kind of, I think, one of the more interesting times to design because it was incredibly difficult to make things of high quality and high fidelity. But the compromises that you had to make to get to that point were all super interesting trade-offs. So yeah, I think that's all I've got for Grim Fandango. This game's great. I recommend people play it.
Mm-hmm.
It holds up.
Really holds up. Yeah.
And with that, I think, Em, it's your turn to pick again.
All right. I'm so excited for this one. So, for context, I was watching a Netflix series called High Score, which is about the early video game world. And this game, which came out it was developed in 1987 and was released in 1992. So that's 5 years development time. This game almost caused the complete destruction of the video game industry. It was the subject of a very fervent injunction by the United States Senate. It was used as an example of violence in video games.
Is this... Wait,
This-
can I guess? Can I get some guesses?
Would you like to guess?
Okay, at first my brain thought E.T., but that's too early.
E.T. was also, I think that caused the crash in 1986.
Yes.
What
Yes.
year are we looking at again?
1992 is the release.
Oh.
So then my second thought went to Mortal Kombat.
That was also part of the whole thing from the government. But this
the
is not.
government,
This
that's
is not
not
Mortal Kombat.
It's not Mortal Kombat. Is it Night Trap?
It's Night Trap.
What is Night Trap?
Okay,
Oh,
so
man.
Em, please explain what's Night Trap?
This is going to be the 25th anniversary edition on Steam. Night Trap is a
FMV.
video. FMVs, yes.
It's an FMV game.
It's an
Full
FMV
motion
game,
video.
like not for broadcast. You are a secret agent, spy person who's monitoring a house full of teenagers as they are being attacked by vampires.
Does it say vampires? It says
It's vampires in quotes. They're not actually vampires. They are augurs, which is something else. We're going to get into this whole thing in the actual podcast.
Yeah, so Night Trap is infamous because, yes, like I've said, it almost got the industry shut down because these teenage girls are getting attacked by men, and it was too realistic.
We'll see about that.
Okay, I'm excited now.
We're going to have a look.
So it's called Night Trap because you're playing someone who is watching security cameras, and when bad guys show up, you have to spring traps to trap the bad guys.
Exactly.
And it's nighttime.
And it is nighttime. I think there's 2 documentaries as part of the game. Deleted scenes, 2 documentaries, the all-new theater that allows you to watch all story-related videos uninterrupted, a new mode with online functionality called Survivor that will test your skills at trapping intruders, and behind-the-scenes production images. Oh man, I'm so excited. I haven't been this excited for one of our games in a while. It's gonna be weird.
Thank goodness. Finally I get to play fucking Night Trap. I've heard of this game for a long time, but only ever in the can you believe that this almost shut down the industry? What a stupid thing to almost ruin everything.
That's exactly, as I was watching it, I was like, oh, we gotta play this. Oh man.
Yeah, you can still go back and see footage of fucking Connecticut Senator.
Oh my god, there were congressional hearings.
Joe Lieberman. You can still see fucking Joe Lieberman railing against Night Trap if you want to.
What a great opening sentence on Wikipedia. Lieberman, who admitted never playing the game.
Yeah, this game was also nothing until
the
Senate got a hold of it a year or 2 later, and they were pissed, and then they sold out of them.
Yeah, it was banned,
Yep.
basically. For the I think the Sega CD, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
was the original release.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh boy, dude, looking forward to this.
This is gonna be fun.
Straight from when did Grim Fandango come out originally?
1998.
Oh, really? Okay, was that late?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. From a great 90s game to the greatest 90s game? Coming up next, Night Trap. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, we played a good game, and hopefully next week we'll play an even better one.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Em.
Thank you. This has been great, and it's only gonna get better next time.
And thank you, listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections at deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace!